Hello. Today we'll talk about ornament today, meaning ornament in contemporary architecture. I will zigzag between various fragments of PowerPoint presentations. I will start by presenting a building in New York City built by a company from the Netherlands. This Atsum is a series of short presentations on architecture. Atsum means in Latin, I am present. So, then this cryptical word is appropriate for what I intend to show today, architecture from the present. But I will also show, just for the record, I will show also that Adolf Loos was not totally exempt from ornament, nor was Mies van der Rohe. So I will show two works by Adolf Loos and Mies, which prove that ornament existed for them and with them as well. But let's see this building in New York City, which is clearly ornamented, and it's ornamented in a rather almost traditional way, but with non-traditional materials. Recycled drink cans decorate exterior of Daily Paper's first US store. So it's a store in the United States, probably downtown Manhattan, and over 13,000 flattened aluminum cans decorate the facade of Dutch fashion label Daily Paper's inaugural shop in the United States, which has opened in Manhattan, New York. The two-story Daily Paper store spans 1,140 square feet, 106 square meters, and occupies a prominent corner building in Manhattan's Lower East Side. And this is the building. And, it is a surprising building considering where it is built and considering the time when it was built, just a few years ago. So, also, I think the idea to recycle, materials and create patterns, ornamental patterns, I think is an interesting idea. So up until now, this brand has exclusively been based out of Amsterdam, where its founders, childhood friends, Hussein Suleiman, Abderrahman Trabzini, and Jefferson Osei, grew up in the Out West neighborhood. All three founders are of African descent, with Suleiman's family hailing from Somalia, Trabzini's from Morocco, and Osei's from Ghana. And this is important because it shows that echoes from the culture that the family came from were to be seen in first Amsterdam and now in New York City. And they used the ingenuity to create these ornaments with the least predictable materials. And why not? So this has come to heavily inform the look of the store, where Heather Faulding of Studio 4+ Design has subtly incorporated references to both Dutch and African culture. The store building has been boarded up and was almost at the point beyond repair, but it has now been fully restored to feature a more ornately shaped roof that emulates the form those seen on traditional Dutch townhouses. And now we look at the ornaments. So I think it is possible to create, at least an acceptable, if not an interesting architecture with unusual means. You recycle, so it's something worth doing these days. I go quickly because we have to show a lot of things. I mean, I have to show a lot of things today. Yes, it's a fashion store, but you wouldn't expect a building to look like this today, and it does. So you look at the alternative. I mean, the unkept stores in Manhattan, you know, and if we compare, you know, the ornaments of graffiti with the ornaments of these creators from Amsterdam, we see two different kinds of ornamentation. You know, one born out of exasperation, perhaps, you know, the graffitis, and then one where skill and you know, geometry are used to convey a sense of order to an extent. And here you see the vicinity. On the left, a store with graffitis on it, and on the right, a building that was restored in a more you know, in a less provocative way, perhaps, but in a sensitive way. So I salute this building. And now we go to a different presentation, but relating again to the same theme. Maybe I should quickly show the building that I want to show, where Adolf Loos, the one who wrote Ornament and Crime, employs ornament himself. And look at this. You know, who would say that this marble is not ornamental? It is, and even in a neurotical kind of way, it's the ornament of nature. But we cannot say that ornament is absent in this space and in this room by Adolf Loos. I mean, he even employs the ornament of marble on the steps and on the floor. So I would say that you know, the author of Ornament and Crime himself committed, at least here, but it's not the only example, crime. Okay, and now since I talked about Adolf Loos, let me also show that Mies van der Rohe himself didn't say no to ornament, although when we think of Mies, we don't usually think of an architect, an ornamental architecture. But the truth of the matter is, what do we see here? We see, you know, a highly ornamented wall, again, using the natural ornaments of marble. But this is inside the Barcelona pavilion, and it shows that even Mies didn't totally turn his back on ornament. And we see also in the courtyard, the picture is not very clear, but you can see that the walls around the sculpture or the statue is highly ornamental. And again, you see here two walls by Mies, employed by Mies inside the Barcelona pavilion, which nobody would contest that they are indeed ornamental. So now let's go to something else in this presentation about ornament today. Yeah, since we talked about two historical figures, Adolf Loos and Mies van der Rohe, let's show some highly ornamental work by Antoni Gaudi, ceramic tiles from the work of this you know, highly creative and exuberant Catalan architect. So the ceramic tiles of Antoni Gaudi introduce in architecture not just ceramic tiles and not just color, but also aleatory placements of fragments of ceramic tiles, broken ceramic tiles. Obviously, he didn't specify precisely the position of each fragment of a broken plate in the project, but he probably instructed his collaborators, you know, skilled craftsmen, to freely, you know, position these fragments. So we have now a collective work. It is signed by Antoni Gaudi, but it is essentially a collective work. Let's not imagine that Antoni Gaudi placed every plate here, broken or not, in the work of Park Güell. I would say it was a joyous activity for the workers as well, for the craftsmen, because very rarely, unfortunately, in the present, in modern times, craftsmen have the joy to create something themselves. And in this case, they did. And I'm sure they enjoyed it. You know, they became artists. And we remember what Walter Gropius said, that both the artist and the craftsman are rooted in craft, but the only difference is that the artist is an exalted craftsman. Well, in this case, the craftsmen working with Antoni Gaudi became themselves artists. And what else do we look at? Artworks done with broken ceramic tiles. And who would say that they are not beautiful? Yes, they are. You know, maybe even the minimalists would agree that there is beauty sometimes in maximalism. Otherwise, how to explain that, minimalist par excellence, John Pawson became in later apparently maximalist. If we contemplate his own house, which he changed, bringing color and pattern, into what was initially a very refined form of minimalist architecture. So Antoni Gaudi and his explosive creativity, his lack of inhibition, his embracing colors, forms, fragmented or not, aleatory placement of whatever came to his hands and to his imagination. Yes, he was an exuberant spirit. And we remember that Frank Lloyd Wright created the equation or believed in the correspondence or the equality or the equation between creativity and exuberance. For Frank Lloyd Wright, creativity equaled exuberance. And we see here exuberance, yes. And it's also a restitution. It's also a work which should have a lot of relevance for us today, because it's about bringing back to life broken pieces of ceramics. I only hope they didn't break them intentionally, which is for this particular work, although that might be very well the case. Anyway, I love this work, and I don't know if there would be anyone who wouldn't. Antoni Gaudi, clearly ornamental work. And I mean, each piece, each fragment, each image shows an artwork, actually, you know. If this was a painting or even done with ceramics and was framed like this, I would gladly put it on the wall. And I stress again the importance of the fact that the craftsmen who collaborated with Antoni Gaudi became artists themselves in the act of gluing together, bringing together all these pieces. Because again and again, let's not imagine that Antoni Gaudi, positioned precisely every piece of ceramic that came to his hand in the working drawings. I'm not even sure if he employed working drawings. But it shows the value of spontaneity, ad hoc architecture. It works and with skillful hands and with a lot of imagination. It does work. Anyway, it's a pleasure to see color. No color in architecture. So much architecture is white or whitish or gray. I'm sick and tired of it. Let's bring color back to architecture. And now let's see some other works that relate to this theme, ornament, today. let's see a little bit pavilion that Benedetta Taliabue, a very important architect from Barcelona, but she's actually Italian, built for an exhibition in Milan. Although there are other works by her which employ ornament. So the Lavit Pavilion for Expo Milano 2015, here it is. I chose to show this example because here we see the structure becoming ornament. So the structure, the exoskeleton that the pavilion is made of, and which sustains the pavilion, is actually becoming ornament or ornamental. And I think either the ornament becomes structure or the structure becomes ornament, or ornament and structure come together to create a beautiful building and a meaningful building. You see here from the air the two pavilions that Benedetta Taliabue built in Milan. Here we see a building built by Daniel Lipskind for China. He was employed by China to build a pavilion dragon-like. Anyway, these two structures that became ornaments built by Benedetta Taliabue, I think they are relevant for the topic of my talk today. And you see also inside, again, who would oppose the statement that there is ornament here? Of course there is. The pattern that is derived from geometry is ornamental, but it's also structural. And this is a good thing where structure and ornament meet. And now I'll show several examples, very interesting and very vivacious from Australia. Australians are very vigorous in their architecture often, and I think we can inspire ourselves from Australian architecture. So again, the topic of today was and is ornament today in architecture. And now let's see this arena built by ARM Architecture plus CCN, Perth Arena. Well, it is my opinion that even when the building doesn't employ explicitly ornament in a so-called traditional way, meaning to hang ornament on walls, the building could have ornamental attributes when elements which are not necessarily justifiable in functional or functionalist terms express some kind of desire to transcend a simple reading of the building and become some might say superfluous, but I would say beautifully superfluous. We are going to see in this building, the ornament is obvious here. I mean, the patterns on the facades of the building are, ornamental in good measure, if not totally. Yes, there might be windows there, but it's clear a concern for ornamentation. Different, very different from Antoni Gaudi's ornamentation, but still ornamentation. And wherever the structure becomes, unstable or irrational, there is an ornamental spirit at work. And that ornamental spirit, we see it also here on the ceiling, in various parts. This building negotiates between structure and ornament, taking into consideration both. But the whole building has a a ludic aspect, a playfulness, which is often associated with, uh, with ornament. Ornament uh, is connected often with what we call playfulness or the ludic aspects of architecture. But here, as I said at the beginning, the ornament manifests itself also indirectly. I mean, even this in the, non-Cartesian geometry of this structure in front of the building is also activated by an ornamental impulse. And then you have, yes, the patterns on the facades themselves, and here on the ceiling. So ornament is present. And some kind of an ornamental disposition is also the slanting of the planes of the building, because you see the plan doesn't anticipate or doesn't announce what is actually the reality of the building. I like this building because it is in between structure and ornament. Now, the Federation Square in Melbourne, Australia, this is another example of a ornamental approach to architecture in a deconstructivist, neurotical way, almost. I don't know if I chose the correct words, but you are going to see the building. Federation Square by Lab Architecture Studio. One of the members of this architecture, he died, unfortunately. He was an instructor at Architectural Association in London. Well, here, this is ornamentation. You cannot have these panels suspended as they are at different angles and different shapes without an ornamental state of mind, so to speak. What is also interesting that, let's say, if we compare this building with the ceramic works of Antoni Gaudi, here we also see, chains encounters between various pieces. It is as if the building is still in construction, is still in the process of becoming, but it is actually, this is the final building. This is how it crystallized itself. It became a building, a finalized version of the building in this way. And I like this fact that it's not static. It's in the process of becoming. So it's both. It's a building that is, and is also a building which is becoming. And so process is present in the final form of the building. I think it's a very interesting building, and it shows again, Australian architecture is experimental, is open-minded, and good for them. What else can I say? In a certain way, the ornament is the flowering of the building. Just as in the spring, the tree begins to have leaves and flowers, is the same with the building. The ornament, and you see it clearly here, the ornament is the flowering of the building. The art of building, a building for art. These are the words that I found. Here we see a different kind of ornamentation. Let's see inside. Look, this, artwork in a way with the glass. It's ornamental. It's not for, this building could have been done in much simpler ways. Why was it done in this way? Because the architects had a certain liking for a certain kind of formal agitation, which is in its essence is ornamental. this sustains itself. It is self-supporting. It is also structural, but it's also ornamental. Through the ornament, I would say that the building seems to want to become nature. And in a certain way, this is what we are looking at as well in this case. Of course, architecture works with geometry. And here we see a geometry which is almost biting its own tail, like the mythological snake. It's turning against itself. But the effect is emotional. And this is the role of ornament, to bring the building closer to nature and to bring the building beyond structure closer to emotions. Interesting works. Now, this one I would, I mean, there is even here, we are again in the field of Australian architecture. I didn't expect to show this, but since, you know, we are here, I would say that even the movement, the rotations of these cubes could be seen as some kind of ornamentation, because for other reasons, they would not have had to be this way. So there is a form of ornamentation which is not explicitly ornamentation, but it is an indirect ornamentation, like in the building that we just saw. And now we are going to see another one, also clearly connected with what we call ornamentation, is this building. What else are those treatments on the facades of the building, if not ornamentation? We see ornamentation here as well. So I guess the Australian light and the sunlight in Australia, you know, makes the Australians dreamy and desiring to have an architecture which is not predictably white and stern and morose and Cartesian. Good for them. I will not insist now because I made a presentation, a separate presentation on Australian architecture. Today, I just wanted to show a few examples of the ornament employed today in various forms. I mean, these diagonals, they are not dictated by structural reasons. They are dictated by an ornament which wants to assert itself in an abstract way, in a dynamic way, but essentially it's an ornament. Okay, so I will stop the presentation now. The architecture practice that built this building is called Lyons or Lyons, I don't know, Lyons. I thought it had something to do with the city in France. No, it doesn't. That's how they are called. And they do very interesting works, indeed. So I want to thank you for being here today.